Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, and I'm here with attorney Stephen Jessup, and we're going to do a disability insurance overview video discussing MassMutual Insurance Company. And Stephen, over the years, we've handled a lot of MassMutual claims at every level, from helping people to apply, appealing a claim denial, and of course, litigating in state and federal courts across the country against MassMutual. So I want to go through kind of some expectations in terms of what to expect when applying, what it's like if you get denied, and then, of course, how things can be handled in a lawsuit, and just touch on those because we have specific videos where we've gone into greater detail about these different levels of services we offer, and every claimant who contacts us is always at a different stage within the claim. But typically, in terms of the MassMutual policies, where do you go in terms of them as a company when someone calls you and goes, "Hey, I have MassMutual"? Because there's 40 companies out there, and we have different opinions about everybody. So, where are you on the scale of like how difficult of a challenge the person's going to have, considering it's MassMutual versus someone else?
Well, MassMutual I find is one of the better insurance companies, more reputable out there. But with that does come certain difficulties when you are applying for a claim. When I hear MassMutual, one of the first things that comes to my mind is thorough. The amount of information they're going to want in review of your claim is, in my opinion, always more than you see from other insurance companies. They are incredibly thorough. They will go through tax returns, whether if you're a medical professional, your production reports with a fine-tooth comb. And if there's anything that they think is an indiscretion or a cause of concern, they will want additional information. So they will review your case much more thoroughly, in my experience, than other carriers. So you need to be prepared for a boatload of requests for information and potential clarification.
And then the other thing that I wanted to note right out of the box that's different about MassMutual is the fact that they sell individual disability insurance products, not a group disability product. So almost all of our clients are people that are business professionals, doctors, lawyers, business owners, high-level executives, people that have bought these policies on their own, did not get them from their employer, and those people are at a significant advantage because they're not subject to the laws of ERISA, which we've talked about in the past. Since they're not subject to them, it doesn't matter. But the bottom line is that if their claim gets denied, they are going to have the right to sue them in a state or federal court, which is a tremendous benefit. It's also the reason why the policyholder from MassMutual paid a lot more money than the group benefit that, and many of our clients have group and individual. The group is $20, $30, $50 a month. The MassMutual was costing hundreds of dollars a month. The other thing is that most of our MassMutual clients and have basically, unless it was some kind of package put together from the employer, have all dealt with a MassMutual agent who has helped them and guided them and said, this is the policy you need to protect yourself. So the hope is that you have a good policy that will do what you need it to do if you can't work. Segueing from there, Steve, into the application process, talk in just a real summary. What are the important elements of the claim that a person applying should expect when dealing with MassMutual?
It goes back to the fact these are individual policies. So generally speaking, we have business professionals, doctors, lawyers, things like that. So you're going to need to expect that they're going to want all the medical information and occupational information. If you're a doctor, that's going to include, production reports, a dentist, your ADA codes. As a lawyer, they may want copies of your calendar, things like that, cases you may be involved in litigation, depositions you've done. They're going to want a lot of information to verify your occupational duties, and then a lot on the medical. You're going to be hit with multiple claim forms, requests for information. That's why it's always a good idea in the application process, prior to even notifying them. When you consult with our office, we're letting our clients know, and potential clients, we're going to need to see copies of all these various documents, and we'll want them ahead of time. So as part of the application, we can get those over to MassMutual. Just so you're not wasting any time with back and forth, requests for information that it's going to be coming.
Right, and I know, like we always say, when we do an application packet for our clients, no matter what type of occupation they have, because we've seen them all, we put together a fully detailed package where there's basically nothing else that MassMutual could ask us for, because when you've done it hundreds of times, you know what MassMutual is going to want. And the claim forms are designed to ask for limited information so that it gives the disability insurance company basically the opportunity to say, well, we need this, we need that. That's not just a specific tactic that MassMutual uses. Everybody does that because they only ask for so much information, because the more time they can hold on to their money, the better their numbers are going to be. And they're a business. They're not necessarily in business to pay you your disability claims. They're in business to make money, and they're not in a rush to process these claims. But in terms of the claims people at MassMutual, another thing, they're one of the smaller disability insurance companies out there. They're clearly not one of the big multi-giant type companies, but I also find that, they have claim people that have been there for a while. They're higher level type claim people. They know what they're doing usually, and that can make it more difficult for a claimant, because you're dealing with someone more experienced than the high volume turnover of a Unum, a Prudential, a New York Life, Hartford, MetLife type companies, where one day we know one person, 3 weeks later it's someone else. Oh, I took over. Don't necessarily get as much turnover with a MassMutual because they're a more higher level type company, and you get what you pay for. But unfortunately, you're going to get some higher scrutiny of your claim that makes you need to be more prepared.
Yeah.
And from there, Steve, when it comes down to a denial from MassMutual versus a denial from another company, like all those other big companies that I just mentioned, what do you usually see in a MassMutual denial, and what is it going to take to overcome that type of denial?
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, if someone contacts me and they're advising me it's MassMutual and their claim's been denied, I go, uh-oh, what's wrong? Because MassMutual, they are fair, they're thorough, and like I said earlier, if they find something that they can sink their teeth in that causes them some level of concern as to the nature of the claim, or they don't believe that it's a valid claim, they will dig in on that. And when it gets to the point that they are denying a claim, it can be very difficult to convince them that it was an improper denial, just because of how thorough. And some of these other companies where they just push through denials quickly, just because there's such a mass volume, they don't do very thorough reviews, so there's more opportunity to be able to respond to it, get the information that's going to be needed. But MassMutual is so thorough on the front end, if it gets to a denial, you have a very uphill battle, in my opinion, at that point.
Right, and often, a lot of times we're able to overcome those denials because of the fact that the MassMutual is very detailed in their review. It's easy for them to poke holes in what's missing. Now, on the token of them being fair, they're not going to go out of their way like some of the other companies to take advantage. But clearly, if there's an inconsistency there, they're going to point it out. They're not going to hide the ball. And we're going to have to come up with a reasonable basis to overcome the inconsistency, or work with you to obtain the additional medical support, or overcome the occupational issue that may be there. A lot of times it's a transition from a total disability to a residual disability definition that's causing the denial, or situations where you're continuing to have income come in from your business, which we've talked about. There's a unique definition of disability with an income component in some of the MassMutual policies, where you may not be able to work, but you're still getting income in, and they're counting that against you, and you're not able to get your full benefits. So that's
your proportionate share, even if you aren't working, is deemed income for purposes of determining your benefit amount.
Right, or you're a business owner that we've often seen, and they're looking at the services performed by other people in the business, not you, and they're attributing that to you, and they're not disputing that you're disabled, but they're looking at the income. So we've seen lots of even occupational, financial type situations that have resulted in denials, and not just the typical, our doctors reviewed the file and don't think that you're disabled. So, and we have, as an alternative to just saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and sue you, we've done appeals, we've obtained additional information, and MassMutual has said, yes, we'll look at more information. We'll even have someone else at the company look at it. And it's helpful if we can avoid a lawsuit, because it's going to save you a minimum of 9 months to a year or more of litigating. Which, Steve, when it comes to litigating, with MassMutual, usually done in either state or federal court, can be anywhere in the country depending upon what the appropriate jurisdiction is. What should someone expect if they do have to go the route of suing MassMutual?
I would say expect a war of attrition. I mean, you're going to have open discovery, so they're going to send out requests for production. They're going to ask you for all kinds of information, financial information, personal information. There's going to be depositions, of you, if your coworkers, your doctors, things like that. So it's an intrusive process, unfortunately. If you thought they were thorough and wanted a lot of information just to get a claim going, once you get into litigation, because the stakes are very high when it comes to litigation, it's going to be an exhausting process. It is going to wear a lot of people down if they don't have the fortitude to endure it and know that it is going to really impact their day-to-day life in a lot of ways, just because of just the amount of information, the requests going back and forth. It's not easy, unfortunately. There's really no way around it. If nothing else about ERISA policies, at least people don't have to worry about that aspect of litigation. But the litigation aspect, you can expect it's gonna be draining. And if you're at that point, you've already probably been fighting for quite some time. So for a lot of people, it is exhausting.
And what I tell everybody who calls me on a final denial, or existing clients that get denied and we're going to have to go into a lawsuit, is that these cases, 9 out of 10 times, they're not about the medical. Yes, we have to prove that you're disabled, but everyone knows when you walk into a courtroom that we're going to have doctors that say you're disabled, otherwise we wouldn't be there. And they know that the insurance company is going to have doctors that come in and say, you're not disabled and you could work. So what it comes down to is the credibility of you as the claimant. And we talk about this, there's a saying in the legal world, the case is only as good as the plaintiff. And because of that, the insurance companies know that, and their best evidence is going to be trying to impugn your credibility, make you look like a liar, smear you, to the point to say that if you weren't honest in this or that, then you can't be honest about your complaints and your inability to do your job. And the trial is more so about you as a person and whether or not the jury, because it's going to come down to a jury of 6 people you never met in your life, are going to believe what you say. The nice thing in going against MassMutual or any insurance company in the disability world is that without anyone even opening their mouth, I can guarantee you that the jurors dislike the insurance company a lot less than anything they think about you, because everyone has been screwed by an insurance company at some point in time. So you start with a little bit of an upper hand and it can swing, but the truth is it's going to come down to who you are and what evidence they have against you. So if you're a good person, you're going to have a great shot to win your trial. If they have some inconsistencies about you, then you're going to have to consider that, because it's going to shift to a jurors who think that you're out to try to get some free money or take advantage, because jurors also think that there's fraud and there's people who like to take advantage of insurance companies. So that's a little summary of us talking about just a general scope of what the attitude is, going to a jury trial. So, and Steve, you talked about another thing, that a lot of times we do mediations as well, where we have, and a lot of our clients are great people who may have been caught on video or may have had a blog that doesn't really portray who they are, because you can't tell on these videos who it is. And we present an opportunity where MassMutual gets to meet our client and feel out who they are and spend 30 minutes or an hour and ask questions and know the character, because they might as well know now than find out in the jury room when you're on the stand for 2 or 3 hours and all of a sudden the jurors are like, this person's great. I don't know what this disability insurance company is thinking about, and I believe everything they're saying. So it's
there's certainly been
it's a performance, it's a show, but it's also getting all of that evidence in there in order to win your trial. So Stephen, we've talked about the application, we've talked about appeals or denials, and we've talked about how we help people in lawsuits. And so what I welcome you to do is contact Stephen or myself for an initial free consultation. You can also spend some time on our website, which we encourage you to do, where you can look up MassMutual and some resolved cases we've handled and lawsuit summaries around the country, which will educate you about this process and really put you in a better position to understand what's ahead. And if you're on claim or applying, put you in the best position to get your benefits approved. So no matter where you are in the country, we welcome the opportunity to speak with you, and we thank you for considering our law firm.